It'll just take a few minutes to get us live. Good evening to everyone who's joining us on Zoom. We are working on uploading to Facebook right now. So we'll be live streaming on Facebook as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Holly Carrots-Nudo. We thank you for joining us as we discuss the status and impact of school dress code on girls in Palm Beach County. I am with Horizon and the Girls Coordinating Council, along with Stop SV PBC, Women's Foundation of Florida, and the Girls Voice Task Force. We are hosting this panel, giving an opportunity for girls who attend school in Palm Beach County to advocate for themselves and other girls in Palm Beach County. I'd like to introduce our other hosts, Takita King-Pang and Winter Jones, and allow them to introduce themselves. Takita?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Takita, the Executive Director of the Women's Foundation of Florida. We are an organization that empowers and educates women and girls to become leaders so that they can change the world around them. We're very excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Winter Jones. I am the Prevention Coordinator with Palm Beach County Victim Services. I run the Stop SV and PBC program. I'm also an executive committee member of the Girls Coordinating Council of Palm Beach County, and I chair the Girls Voice Task Force, which is a safe space for girls to connect, to learn, to grow together, to develop leadership and self-advocacy skills for a better future. So thank you so much.
And we are joined by 4 young women who will be our panel moderators. Let's meet the moderators. We'll start with Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Demera. I'm a junior at Suncoast High School in Riviera Beach. I was born and raised in West Palm Beach, and I'm also an advocacy lead for the Coalition Against Period Poverty.
Daphne.
Hello, I'm Daphne Miranda Cepeda. I'm a senior at Inlet Grove Community High School and currently on the path to become a social worker.
Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia Antoni. I currently go to Suncoast High School where I am a junior. I'm also a part of the Coalition Against Period Poverty, CAP, and I live in West Palm Beach, Florida.
And Sammy.
Hi, I'm Sammy Janat. I am a senior at Inlet Grove Community High School, and I'm with the Girls Voice Task Force.
Winter.
Okay, yeah, I was on mute. Sorry about that. All right, so thank you so much to our panel moderators and for introducing yourself. We're just going to also, we would like to ask for the panelists to go ahead and take about 30 seconds to introduce yourselves as well. And I'll start with Fran. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Fran Bossett, and I'm here from the School District of Palm Beach County. I actually started as an ESC teacher here, and prior to becoming a district administrator, and some of the things that are very relevant in terms of this panel, where I supported the initiatives of school-wide positive behavior support and classroom management prior to my role now as a program planner in the Department of Behavioral and Mental Health, where we're looking at bringing all of this good work with an equity lens. And again, this topic is just perfect. And I just need to add women's empowerment as another big piece, because we have a women's ERG group, which is an employee resource group that we had Holly and April actually represent last year. So we hope to again get the word out more and more about the amazing work that you all are doing. So really proud to be here.
Thank you so much, Fran. Can I have Erica Whitfield make an introduction?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Whitfield. I am the District 4 school board member. I've been the school board member for 8 years, and I'm definitely serving you for the next 4 because I just got reelected. My 3-year-old is in the background, so I apologize. She is talking to herself, but she's one of my big reasons for doing this job. Also, I have a 9th grader at Suncoast, which I'm very proud to see that you all and see you guys again because we've met before. And I just love that you invited me to be on this. I'm very interested in being here to support students, especially as you question the leadership around you and the decisions that are being made. I think that's really an important part of this process. So thank you so much for including me.
Thank you. And Takesha Richardson, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, ladies. My name is Takesha Richardson. I am an attorney here in Palm Beach, Florida. I work for the firm Cohen Milstein and Sellers and Toll. I currently advocate on behalf of survivors of sexual assault. Prior to working in civil litigation on behalf of survivors, I was a prosecutor here in Palm Beach County, where I was the chief operating officer of the Special Victims Unit. So I prosecuted crimes against children, women, and the elderly that were sexual in nature, as well as did some homicides. So I'm happy to be here tonight as a part of this panel.
Thank you so much, Takesha. We are so grateful for each of our panelists volunteering their time to join us for this discussion. We know that Senator Osgood is not here, but we're so grateful for each of you who were able to be here. So we're just going to go ahead and get started and with Q&A, and I will turn it over to Takeda.
All right, I have the honor of turning the panel over to our student moderators. So folks, take it away.
School Board Member Whitfield, what is the school board stance on dress code regulation and enforcement?
So overall, the school board, and thank you so much for asking this question. And I also just want to let you know, I did get answers to all of the questions to prepare for tonight. So if Senator Osgood can't be here, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have as well. The school board overall doesn't have a very restrictive policy. All we say is that it needs to be appropriate. And so appropriate is subjective. Sometimes a school can actually make a decision to go a little bit more stringent than that. And that's what you're seeing happening at some schools where they decide to make it more of a higher bar for dress code. But overall, all we say is that the dress needs to be appropriate. And the overall theme behind dress code is that, you know, you're here to get educated. So we don't want anything that's going to distract and in some cases we want to make sure you're safe. So sometimes people bring in outfits that are not appropriate for safety. So those are things that are taken into consideration.
All right. I have another question for Ms. Bosich. Is body type taken into consideration when forming and enforcing dress code? Because I feel like with personal experience, I definitely see that there are dysfunctions within the dress code when it comes to body type. I definitely see girls that are curvier getting dress coded a lot more often than other different body types. So is there kind of a discrepancy between that?
Hi, good evening again. Thank you, Sophia. That's an excellent question. And it's an area of consideration that has something that we've recommended as a best practice to consider when we're really looking at problem solving around dress code violations, whether they're repetitive actions and so forth. And just how Ms. Whitfield opened up perfectly. And I think we dovetail very well, just even from that perspective. So it is much more school specific, number one. So I can just attest to just some of the things that we would ask to or coach in terms of problem solving might be really just looking just as a plus size woman, for example, where some schools have written into their dress codes to require tucked in shirts into waists of pants. So I would just try to bring the perspective in the past, even just kind of taking that into perspective. There might be some body types that are not so comfortable or stylistically to even do so. So might that be an area that schools could look to alleviate and not require that piece? So in terms of actually answering the question about some body types receiving more than others. I can't necessarily speak to that, but again, just the considerations in terms of what might be those requirements would certainly be an area for schools to, again, problem solve and reconsider.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
My question is for Ms. Richardson. How does the school board, police, or law enforcement become involved in different dress code violations?
Thank you for your question, Sammy. And fortunately, dress code violation under normal circumstances is not criminal. So as our layperson's understanding and appreciates of criminal conduct is, if it's a violation of law, then law enforcement becomes involved. So when we're talking about school policies that are being enforced in school, a simple dress code violation would not necessitate the need for law enforcement to become involved. However, some of the challenges that kind of, in law, everything has how it's not black and white, it's gray. So that's a cut and dry, it shouldn't be, but then we get to the gray. The gray becomes challenges that happen sometimes when students are being dress code violations and the responses thereafter to the dress code violation. So if it becomes a point where it's disruptive to the school environment, then a student may become or find themselves in a position where they're now in a position that's even more challenging than just the original dress code violation. A second part of that is sometimes there are students who are in school who are on juvenile probation. So they've already had some contact with the juvenile justice system, and a standard policy or a standard condition of their juvenile probation would include that student not having any disciplinary actions while in school or any conduct in school that would be a violation of any of those schools' policies. And that also could lead a student to being in the juvenile justice system deeper because they're now in violation of their probation and potentially subjected to criminal sanctions in the juvenile court because of it.
I'd like to ask School Board Member Whitfield, how should teachers approach students about their clothing choice in a way that's considerate or sensitive to the students?
Thank you so much. So just so you guys know, as we're having this conversation, if we say something and you want to respond to us, feel free. I'm sure Ms. King Pang will be okay with that, but we can have more of a discussion about it. So if something we're saying doesn't resonate with you, I just want to encourage you to continue that line. So if it's okay, talking about this as a way to follow up on Ms. Richardson, one of the things that I looked into on this is the question about what kind of a violation is it when you have a dress code violation and what should happen. And it is considered a level 1 violation. And so they've actually sat down and put all of the types of violations into categories and decided which one, and then Ms. Bassich might be even better to explain this than anybody else here, but they've categorized all of them into different violation categories. And so level 1 violations are like the lowest level. So it's things like tardiness, you're out of your area, you left school grounds without permission, public displays of affection is on that list, which I think is pretty funny, cheating, failure to comply with school rules. So there are definitely things that aren't great, but the things that they do with that, it should never go to law enforcement because it's such a minor infraction. And so if you're seeing at a school that law enforcement has been called in on a dress code, first of all, I would want to know the full story because it should be more than just, this person's wearing a tank top and we don't like that. So maybe there's something further, but you should definitely be questioning that. And any teacher that approaches a student, to get back to the question at hand, any teacher that approaches a student or a staff member, administrator, whatever, should treat every student and every person with respect. This process of education is not, it shouldn't be anyway, where it's being pushed down onto you, but you should be a participant in your education. So if there is, we have to have rules. Everybody lives in rules. We all have to. It's the way society works when you have a lot of people in a small space. But if there's a way that is happening that is not done with respect, then that's an inappropriate way to resolve an issue. So I would encourage you to reach out to your principal if that does happen. I know that's a question for later on, but to make sure that you are being heard and making sure that you feel that the appropriate discipline was given. So just so you know, level 1 actions, it should be like a conference with parents, you're referred to guidance, peer mediation. The worst thing that could possibly happen is a detention. That's the worst thing that should happen to you for that.
I'd like to ask a quick follow-up question. If teachers didn't approach students in a respectful way, how would we manage that with the teacher?
I would say in the moment that you're in, I would listen and I would take all that information in. And then when that moment has passed, I would go to see one of the administrators on your campus, an AP or your principal. And if you're not feeling heard there, you can go to your area office or to your school board member, but there's always a person above that person that you can go speak to. But when you're in the moment, I would sit and listen to the teacher, be respectful back in the way that you hope that they would be to you, and take the information that they're giving you. And then if you need to and you feel that they weren't being respectful, I would go to a higher authority and have your have them reconsider or hear you out. In my position that I'm in, I get emails every day from people who want to have kind of their case reviewed, like somebody to go in and say, my kid's not getting the right services or someone was treated unfairly. And so then I take it to administration, and usually then it goes to the area office where they then review it in more detail. You're going to get witnesses to come forward if it's a really big deal. But this is the kind of thing where somebody else above that person will then come and review. Usually the principal should be able to handle it from there and talk to the teacher about the way that they were approaching, or, if the student's wrong, which does happen, speak to them about it.
Can I just add something? I would echo everything that Ms. Whitfield said and just add one thing in between going to the person higher up than the teacher. After you've listened and allowed your calm head to prevail as well and respond, responsibly in a respectful manner, I think sometimes it's always important to then just document via an email. So you guys have a system in the schools where you can directly email your teachers. And sometimes when you have to put pen to paper, or in your cases, fingertips to keyboard, it allows you to calm down and collect your thoughts about what it is you actually want to say to best advocate for yourself. So when you've had a moment to leave that class, to leave school for the day, then just refresh, your thoughts about what happened. Put that in an email to your teacher saying you just want to address what happened today. You're hopeful. And I always say, start off with one, even if you don't feel you need to, starting off in a position of apologizing if there was a misperception about your response to what happened today. But you just want to express X, Y, and Z about the situation, and you don't want to be perceived as X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times that's a way for you to kind of like have a second opportunity with that teacher to readdress what happened that day and kind of diffuse the situation before you need to take it to the next level.
I appreciate those responses.
I actually have a question for school board member Whitfield. So girls of color are often targeted at a higher rate for dress code violations, which often leads to the reason that they enter the juvenile justice system. How is this being addressed by the district?
Oh, this is hard because it shouldn't be happening, right? So when you say that it's happening and it's not supposed to be, we have to deal with those on a individual basis when it does happen. So we need to hear about it if it does happen. And I'm not saying it doesn't, because I've been in schools. I understand that this is an issue. Not everyone gets treated the same way, but that's definitely not our goal as a school district. The whole idea about dress code to entry into juvenile justice seemed like a bit of a reach for me. I felt like dress code is over here and juvenile justice is over here. And I hope there's a lot of steps in between before you get into that. So that's why I brought up the idea of what could be a consequence for a level 1 violation, which is, very, very low. And so the most that should happen is a detention. And so if you see that there's a larger impact that's happening on a student from a dress code, that's something we definitely need to know about. And we should be able, and if it's something that you're seeing at one school versus another, and I 100% understand that they're totally different. I've been to lots of schools, and some of them I walk in and I'm horrified about what the kids are wearing, and other ones I'm like, really, does it have to be that strict? I think we could actually be a little bit more lenient. So, it really does come down to the principal, but if there is like a market difference, that's something that we should know and we should be addressing. So I would like to know about it when it happens.
Can I just add on to that a little bit? I think the points that Ms. Whitfield makes are very well taken, but I think oftentimes, when you're not a representative of the class that's being targeted, you probably are the best voice for the people that are being targeted. So if you as a non-minority are taking note of the fact that your peers around you who appear to be minority or who are minority students are appearing to be targeted more. The beauty of your generation is you always have that little computer cell phone in your pocket at all times. And so documentation is key. So if you're seeing it and you see a girl in your school and it's like, well, she has on the same type of khakis as me, but hers may be a little bit tighter because she has a little bit rounder butt or thicker hips or whatever, but we're wearing the same pants and hers just necessarily don't fit as tailored as mine because she's a curvier girl and you see her being targeted, document that through a picture. Take a picture that day. It's going to be timestamped. Timestamp another girl who's a non-minority, who's wearing the same thing, who wasn't targeted. Make a compilation of those things and then present your evidence showing that, like, we're not just blowing smoke. We're not just saying this is happening because we want to complain. This is actually happening. And here's our documented proof to show how it's happening, when it's happening, and the disparity between the people that are being targeted. So
well, let's be clear. I completely agree. These things do happen. And remember I said in the beginning, it's appropriateness, so it's subjective. And when you're talking about humans getting involved, they're going to bring all their biases with them. And that is something that's just a reality within the school system, is that every person gets to say that's appropriate or that's not, every administrator, teacher, whoever it is. But they're going to carry all their baggage with them on what they believe looks good and doesn't look good, or it fits what their vision is for what a student should look like or what they should cover or not. I'm guilty of it myself. I've been on campuses where I pull the principal aside and I'm like, is this okay? And it's my own personal bias that I have. But as a collective, I believe we can do better. So I think that when it's one person, their biases are definitely something that's going to impact it. But once we get multiple eyes on a situation, multiple people to evaluate it, I think that's when we can find that, like, the best middle ground. So that's why I definitely encourage you to talk to people about it. And I love the idea that Ms. Richardson said about document in emails and in video or pictures, because that's what we end up going back to. It changes the world when we're trying to figure these things out as a big system.
All right, thank you for those further explanations. I have another question for Ms. Richardson. My question is, what are ways that the school district can reduce the sexualization of females through dress code? For example, girls being held at a higher standard and wearing tank tops by in regards and like versus males being able to like remove their shirts during gym class or wearing those like muscle t-shirts. But yeah.
So Sophia, my answer probably won't be popular with you teens, but I do think that if the ultimate goal is to streamline, the disparities between how girls are treated versus boys, I think the school board could do more regarding the uniforms. I think honestly, like it was actually shocking to me that in Palm Beach County, all public school students aren't required to wear school uniforms. I went to school in Miami and all schools require uniforms, even at the high school level. And the challenges that generally happen at the high school, middle school level. And so in Miami, high school students all pretty much wear the same thing. You can wear jeans, your jeans cannot have any rips or any tears in them. You can wear whatever color choice is your school. So if your school is khaki bottoms, black bottoms, blue bottoms, whatever that is, you can wear those. But the bottoms are only pants. So no girls can wear skirts, shorts, or dresses. So everybody's in pants and the shirts are the school uniform. And to me, it kind of lessens this idea of people subjectively deciding, whether or not you're in code, you're out of code, because ultimately everybody's literally wearing the same thing. And the general rule is if it's to be covered by your underwear or something that will be covered by undergarments, which would include an undershirt, your bra, your panties, his boxer shorts, it can't be shown. So girls can't wear cutoff. You can't wear things that show your midriffs. Boys wouldn't be wearing like muscle t-shirts because that's an undergarment. They'd have to have on their school issued uniform. And frankly, I think it lessens some of the struggles that are happening here in Palm Beach County.
Ms.
I
Bridges, I just completely agree. I love uniforms. When I first got on the board, I thought we should make uniforms for everyone. And I was told this is not a hill you want to die on. Because
Miami did it. Dade County, a huge school district.
I think
It's
the other thing
required.
about uniforms is the equity piece, which is the part
Correct.
that I like the most. It's like if we have all these people donating, we're actually tomorrow morning, we're opening a new closet at Grassy Waters, where it's community members bringing in shirts and pants and underwear and socks for students if they don't have any. And so if my daughter comes in the same thing that your daughter comes in, nobody knows who has more money, who has more access. Actually, in my case, who's better at fashion. I was always stressed out about what I'm wearing. Do I look good? You know? And so I think I would like no sexualization and everybody's just there to learn because that's what school's supposed to be about. But children do like the freedom of expression on some level. And so I don't want to kill that either because I like arts and all that. But I love uniforms. I would wear one every day. If we could have a uniform for our everyday life, I'll be one of the people that would take that up.
And you see some of the artistic expression in the schools in Dade County because they do that with their belts, their scarves, like the things that they accessorize the uniform with. So those things are not precluded, but just the general garments of what's covering your body is uniform. And I don't think they have as many issues regarding the school dress code policy because of that.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. In the cases where obviously it's like a lot of schools, like you guys said, in Palm Beach County don't have uniform, what is the district stand on like trying to lessen and reduce the sexualization of females?
So when you say sexualization of females, can you explain that a little bit more? Because the way the question is worded, it made me think of it different than I'm hearing it right now.
Yeah, so in this case, I'm talking about like personally at Suncoast, we do not have like a dress code with uniform, so in the case, I see a lot of girls wearing like strappy tank tops, but guys also wearing the muscle like t-shirts. And I've only heard that one guy ever got dress coded when girls constantly daily get dress coded because of our t-shirts. So I don't know if they're inherently sexualizing something so like normal as our shoulders in comparison to men, so I just think there's a double standard and there's definitely a bias. And my question is, how can the school district reduce the sexualization in the cases where uniform is not in place? Is there some kind of training that you guys have for teachers? Is there are the dress codes policies themselves built to not inherently sexualize females? That's my question, if that clears it up.
Yeah, I think the problem that I get stuck with is that I wish that nobody would wear anything that exposed their shoulders, their backs, their stomachs, men, women, it doesn't matter. So I think that the sexualization, that's the part, because I feel, since we're talking to women here, let me share this with you. I feel like being a woman in a workplace is always a tricky situation. And you guys will probably experience this. I hope your generation is better than this, but being a woman in a workplace as you get older, you can sometimes not be seen for who you are and the qualities and talents that you bring to your job, but we're looking at how you dress. If you think about, the election when Hillary Clinton wore a white suit, maybe dating myself, but it was all about, when we look at, hold on, Nori. It's all about when we look at those high level leaders, we're still questioning how they dress, what they look like. And it's an inherent bias, I think, in our lives that women are judged on a different standard. But I'm a little bit stuck on this sexualization because I would like, if it was up to me and I ran the world, which I clearly do not, I would like everyone to be wearing a collared shirt to school every day. And I think none of those things are acceptable. So I think whenever you give people like this opportunity to be self-expressive, sometimes some people push it too far. And so that ends up happening. I think we spend a lot of time in Palm Beach County talking about how we can be equitable. And Ms. Bash probably could attack this question even better. but that's our goal. And it's caused us a lot of grief at the school board to try to continue to put equity into the minds and mouths of everybody in our district. But we are always trying to strive for better and to make sure that we're treating everyone the same. Miss Bash, why don't you jump in there and I will go get my daughter something that will make her happy.
Well, I would have to concur. It's pretty much equity is the premise of everything that we are trying to do. So what you said before, I think there's a few different avenues. It's kind of like, back to working with our school staff, right? And, and even just, I think even opening up minds to, having some of our staff members being more open to the conversation even, we do definitely there's different perspectives in that way too, and how the approach. So I think there's always room for improvement in both areas. But ultimately, I think everybody's looking for the improvement and to make sure that everybody's getting the best from their school day. But I think this goes into, I don't know if you want to open up the next question in terms of like the training piece, because we're almost going in that avenue too. And I think that I can elaborate further with that prompt.
Can we,
Yeah.
before we go there, I just wanted to just add one thing to what the ladies were saying. And I do think it's important, obviously, to talk about the training and how we point the directions of the staff that are dealing with you guys at school. But Sophia, I do want to say that sometimes you kids don't recognize your own power. Well, I shouldn't say that, because your generation is pretty astute about recognizing that you have a voice and you can be heard. So when you ask a question about, I'm wearing a tank top that's strapless, and my peer who's a boy is wearing a muscle shirt that's equally strapless, then what's the difference here? And it just kind of goes back to the same thing about advocating for a position that clearly demonstrates that there's a disparity in how punishment is being issued out. That a girl can't show her shoulders, but a boy can. I mean, our shoulders are only different because he's a boy and you're a girl, but they're pretty much the same. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to document when you see the disparity, that it's like, okay, we got 10 girls sitting in, they've escalated the levels. They've gotten the parent warning. They've gotten that you can't participate in extracurricular for 5 days. They've gotten all the things because they're at level 3 now of their 3rd violation. And ultimately, you've seen over the course of whatever period of time, boys wearing the same exact thing, and they're not sitting in indoor suspension for being in a muscle shirt. And I think it's at that point that when you document it to show proof, you escalate that to the people in your school that are in charge of dress code violations. You then get to your vice principals, your principals, and then to these wonderful ladies here who are on your school board commission, to let it be known that like there are disparities. We see the disparities and it's happening every day. So it's not necessarily issuing out these subjective opinions about what people see and what is or what is not. It's very clear if you're seeing girls being targeted for tank tops and boys not in their muscle shirts. So I think with anything, your own advocacy is always important. So learn to self-advocate when you see it and document it first.
All right, thank you so much for that advice and the further comments.
Miss Botch, if correct me if I said your last name wrong. Like, it's kind of a 2-question. It's what is the process and how are the district staff trained to enforce the dress code, and what is the appropriate means of discipline for dress code violations?
Thank you so much. And you're so close. I lifelong, it's Bosich. But I always actually had my students call me Miss B for that very reason, because it's not easy. So like we said before, and I think it's a good thing, but I think that's a frustration too, because again, it's very school specific. So that's really but I think that's the hopeful piece too, in terms of how Ms. Richardson is advising you to take your own data, right? And so in that way, when we're looking at the codes of conduct, so we have our elementary version as well as the high school version or the secondary version in terms of the student codes of conduct that are republished every single year. And in terms of the pertinent staff. It's every school, again, specifically how they would handle it, but typically at the beginning of the year, it's a en masse orientation and part of the opening of schools where dress code is relayed along with other safety procedures, whether it's drills and other different codes and such. And it also, in terms of how the actual dress code is outlined, so the staff then would be oriented to how that procedure and process would work. But the most important piece is how Ms. Whitfield opened up, and the biggest takeaway for everybody to recognize, because like we said, they're level 1 incidents. And as the code of conduct states, even if it's repetitive and with the progressive discipline where it outlines that if they were repetitive could move to level 2, and that is also within the building administration's jurisdiction. But the biggest thing is with level 1 incidents, there must be documented intervention prior to even writing a discipline referral. So that's back to Ms. Whitfield's good concern. If we're looking at, you're seeing dress code violations as being a direct correlation to some other incidents, that is definitely an area to bring to your principal, indeed. Did you have any other questions about just the orientation process overall?
My question mostly stems from the fact that some teachers, they find themselves that they say weird comments after enforcing the dress code. Like one of my friends, for example, she was dress coded for wearing a skirt, and then the teacher proceeded to call them a slut. So that's why it gets weird that's why a lot of us are concerned of how they're enforcing this. Like what
Did they tell anybody?
They didn't, because they kind
So
of got scared
this is
too.
like a huge deal for us. Like something like that is not small. It's something that should be addressed, and especially if you have a teacher who's actively calling children by names, that horrifies me. So that's the kind of thing we need to know about. I actually did ask my daughter about this in preparation. So my focus group of 1, I was like, hey, how's dress code at your school? And sometimes I do see her go with her belly hanging out in a little short shirt, because I know that's the style. And she said that there's one person, I think on the 2nd floor, if I'm not wrong, that if you walk by them, you get dress coded. No. Anyway, teacher. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So she's like, I always bring a jacket. So if I have to walk by that person, I put the jacket on and then I keep going. And I was like, it's so interesting that this is something that's talked about within the school. Like if you go by this teacher, you've got to be careful because they're going to dress code you. But those teachers, they don't care as much. And so, it's just, we're dealing with humans here. There's a lot of problems with humans. We're trying our best, but something like that, where somebody is clearly targeting or finding fault in a place that maybe it's not needed, and then you've got over here nobody's even paying attention. Like if they're doing something to like not treat a child with respect, then we need to know about it. You have to tell us so that we can. I mean, you can send me an email. I can keep it private. Generally, I like to know if I can get some names, because it makes life a lot easier. If I go to Miss Kerner and I say, hey, you have a teacher that called somebody a slut, she's going to go, well, I'm going to need to know who it was, when did it happen, did anybody see it? But that's the kind of things we try to deal with. When I first got on the board, I'd be like, I heard that this principal does this, or this person, this school is known for whatever. And they would be like, we need concrete examples that we can deal with. And so I've gotten trained into that. I can't just go with themes that I hear from schools. I need to know what happened, when it happened, how it happened, and so we can fix it and address that situation. And then, we have progressive discipline for students. We have progressive discipline for adults too. So if they're doing something constantly wrong, that's something that, they will then see repercussions for themselves.
Yeah. The friend that told me that story was when that happened, she was in middle school, but now she graduated high school. So I think, and she was really young that time. So I think especially when we're that young, we don't really like going against authority figures.
I
It's
know.
like, yeah, so it was very difficult for her. But I think when she was older, she was able to talk about her story more than she was when she was in middle school. But
That's very good. Well, so let me say one more thing about
Mhm.
this, if I can. As a school board, we're trying to get more student voice. It's the thing that's like, you know, it's kind of taking over. Everybody wants to know, what do the students think? So we've been trying it for a while to do this as a district. And one of the things that we created was a student advisory board. And so we get to appoint, every board member gets to appoint one student, you know, to the board, and then that student can come and we discuss issues there. Also, we have our student councils, and then you know, there's the county-wide level student councils. These are things that, you know, in your voice through your elected leaders, you guys are electing them just like people elect me. You should say, you know, I'm really concerned about this. And things like dress code and lunch are like the number one things that come up from students is, how do we improve lunch? And oh, by the way, you know, I want to wear what I want to wear. So these are the places where it's appropriate for you to bring these up. If you want to do it in a more global way rather than an incident at a time, you know, we know that these teachers are more likely to dress code. They're not doing it fairly. You know, there's boys going around in tank tops, but girls can't have the same thing. You know, this is a good place for you to do it. And I will say that that is the goal, is for us to hopefully hear from students and create appropriate laws and rules in our schools that represent the needs that we have to keep everybody safe, but also are not overly stifling.
Thank you for the responses. I would like Lily to ask her next question.
I have another question for school board member Whitfield. Why are there discrepancies between schools in dress code rules? What are the factors that play into the variation across Palm Beach County?
So each school gets to make their own rules. I know. Can you hold on for a second? So each school gets to make their own rules. They get to make a decision on how they would like that to happen. The place where that happens is in the school advisory councils. So it's usually business representatives, a few parents, and there's usually at least one student rep on the SAC and sometimes a couple of them. And that's done at the beginning of every school year, where they decide what dress codes that they would like above and beyond our requirement of appropriateness. Some schools, and it can be very frustrating because you can like walk into a school and tell the difference immediately, you know, when it's being pushed really hard on students, and other ones where nobody seems to care at all. But it is done through that. So each school has the right, and there's like a theory in Palm Beach County around this. It's that the system is so big. We're about to have 182 schools. Right now we have 180, you know, 170,000 students to 27,000 employees. The system is so big that if we were to centralize every decision at the school district headquarters, we would never get anything done. So some items get sent to the school to deal with and to decide how they want to do it in their own school community. And this is one of those items. So we have a policy that says, be appropriate in your dress, and then it goes to the school to decide how they're going to implement that. And so really, like, though we can come down and say you're not doing it right, or you're doing something that's inappropriate in the way you're enforcing your rules that you've created, they do have the right to make their own rules.
Have you noticed any specific reasons that a school might choose to create policies one way or another? Are there certain demographics?
So, yeah, I mean, I think what happens is they generally let you do whatever you want until you do something egregiously wrong, and then a rule gets created to deal with that. So if there's shirts being worn with curse words, if there's, you know, some sort of something that's upsetting people, sometimes that can be, you know, kind of an issue for having everybody in one space. So they may make a rule for that. But it definitely, I think the different socioeconomics of each school is a huge impact on it, and whether or not a school chooses to do uniforms or restricted dress usually impacts on like the wealth of the students, which is why I don't like it, because I'm a pretty big equity believer. And I don't like the idea, like at your school, you actually, I think, have less restrictions than if you went to like Palm Beach Lakes, which is right down the street. You know, we're talking students, same age, you know, same general vicinity of the county. And the the difference in what students look like on campus is wildly different. And it's really usually has to do with the affluence of the school and how that translates into the decisions that the school makes. But it's supposed to be made not from an administrator down, but a collaborative of your business leaders, your parents, and your students. And it's at the beginning of every school year. So if there's something that you would like to wear that you can't, or if you'd like no one to be able to wear tank tops so that boys, girls, everybody, nobody can show their arms, those are things that can be decided during that SAC meeting at the beginning of the school year and then enforced, through the year. But it is a collaborative decision. I remember one time I was on Dreyfus campus, and that one is like anything goes at Dreyfus, and it makes me crazy. But I saw a girl who had like a tube dress on, so it had like no shoulders and no it like barely covered her butt and barely covered her boobs, And I was like, how is that okay? And they were like, no, they're artists, so they have to express themselves. And I was shut down. It was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna move on from this. But like as a collective, that's what they decided was okay, and that's what the principal did. And I'm, I don't love it, but it's not up to me to decide.
Sammy, you're on mute.
Oh, okay. I have a question for Miss Richardson. How are hairstyles taken into account when it comes to dress codes, and what are students' right when it comes to their ability to wear hair in a preferred style? And I'm mainly talking about students of color, because I remember a time in middle school when I came to like Saturday tutoring, it wasn't even like a school day officially, but I got in trouble because my hair was like in an afro, and the teacher said that, oh, even if it's Saturday, it's still school, so it has to be, your hair has to be kept tidy and not messy like this, and threatened to like call my mom if I came back with my hairstyle like that.
And I'm probably not the best person to answer this question, and I'll say that for two reasons. The first one would be, I don't necessarily know what the policies are in the school regarding hairstyles, but as a lawyer, which may not be the appropriate answers for you girls, as a lawyer, there are certainly protections in terms of what you can exercise over your body for your own freedoms. And so we get back to this idea that so much of this is subjective. And unfortunately, a lot of times people's subjective opinions come from their own experiences. And when you don't have a personal experience with something, it's easier to make it a negative than it is to embrace the fact that it's just different and not necessarily a negative. So I would say that my inclination would be that you should have complete, full expression over how you wear your hair. And that shouldn't be something that is even subjected to somebody telling you that is appropriate or inappropriate, because it's just an expression of yourself. Unless, and that's a big unless, the only caveat would be if it's something that causes disruption. So if you're coming to school with your hair on fire, then certainly you're in some like it's troublesome. But if you're there with, if it's blue, if it's purple, if it's pink, like it's your head, it's your body. You should have the freedom to express yourself in any way that you want. And I say that with the caveat that the school board ladies might tell me there's a policy that says otherwise. So I apologize if that's the case.
I actually have the policy here. I brought it with me. If you guys want, I can share the screen and show it to you, or I can put it in the chat so you can see it. The only thing that really ties into hair is what you said, is neatness. Like there's a piece in the policy that says you must stay like, I don't know, presentable, neat. In my mind, I want you all to be successful professionals one day. And so I'd like you to be able to like go out in the world and get a job and whatever. I don't think an afro prohibits that. I don't think many hairstyles prohibit that. I really think you should be able to wear your hair any way you want. There was some, I know someplace in Texas where they were having a struggle with that, where they wouldn't let a girl come in with like blue hair and they thought that was a distraction. That I don't think Palm Beach County would ever do something like that. And if it did happen here, obviously we want to know about it. I think hair is, personally your own expression. I don't, we have a piece in there about, nothing that could be used as a weapon or nothing that could, harm somebody else. But unless there's some crazy hair that I'm unaware of, I really don't see it as a problem. But if you want, does the chat work on this? Peter? Since we're on here, I can just drop the dress code minimum requirements in, and then you guys can look at them and tell me what you think on any of the pieces.
So with Ms. Whitfield saying that, if any of you are being confronted with places where somebody's telling you that there's a problem with your freedom of expression to your hair, with the way that you're wearing your hair, please give me a call and we'll be glad to advocate on your behalf at the school about their lack of allowing you to to express yourself freely, how you choose. Because the challenge is, it's the same word we've been using all day, like to place in there that it has to be neat. What's your idea of neat? You know, that's going to be different from person to person. Which is why it's just, unless it's violent, unless you're harming someone, then nobody should be policing your hair.
Miss Bossich, am I saying that correctly?
You got it. Yeah.
All right, Miss Bossich, how can students speak to administrators about ineffectiveness of dress code? Like, how do they know how or where to contact them, and in what way would how should they approach that?
I think this is another excellent question, and Ms. Whitfield opened this up earlier because student voice and choice is huge, and it is all part it's written into our current strategic plan. It's going to be a huge piece into the next strategic plan, just so everybody knows in terms of just how committed we are. So you know, just I was thinking about all the different forms, and, you know, again, depending upon the school. So, you know, whether it's out of school time, after school clubs and programs, is it Latinos in Action, Black Student Union, Mirrors and Windows Club, grade level student government, might be your, you know, go through your grade level student government, possibly. And then another piece, though, because you know, a common theme from our conversation has been the subjectivity. And I just want to put out there, or it's an important reminder, that part of school-wide positive behavior support, which is in all of our 180 comprehensive schools, which, so to you at Suncoast, I don't know what the actual motto is, but for example, if you had something like SOAR, you know, or respectful ownership, safety, it's those guidelines, and that's operated by a team which is comprised of different representative teaching staff, administrators, and it's recommended to have student voice on that team from time to time. And what's recommended as a practice is even to have task forces. So when I saw these questions and saw this panel, I thought, wow, if at these particular schools, maybe it's even at Inlet and Suncoast where we first start off, because of you as the representative student voice is there. So I would even just kind of give you some homework to kind of seek out who is that, it's called positive behavior support, who is that team or that committee at your school, and who oversees it, and ask them, could we look at dress code? Because what happens is at end of the year procedures and wrapping up, they're looking at data. Maybe something the students could even bring up is, can we look at our dress code violations? We do have some questions about who's getting them and who's giving them. And then that's a way for the team to really get into more of the details about the very things you're bringing up, and then having some conversation. So maybe that's even another way then for both students and the staff to voice these very concerns further. I see your marker, Holly, I'm going to pay attention to that. So just put that, I think you have a multitude, I say all that, there are many avenues, so don't oversee any particular avenue to get this important concern out to your admin.
So
So I've struggled with the pasting of this information in there, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with Ms. King Peng, and maybe you can share it with our panelists whenever you have time.
So for our final question, we would like to give each of our distinguished panelists 30 seconds to speak about how they will use what they learned from this discussion in their work.
Do you have anybody that wants to go first, or should I? Okay, well, I'll be very quick. So I think this is a valuable discussion. I'm very glad that you guys brought this all to me. I will bring it up to the superintendent. I'll let him know about the concerns. I did have a very lengthy discussion with our deputy superintendent when I brought your questions, and I said, I want to make sure that I can answer all these well. So I sat down with him and we discussed it. I will let them know about your concerns, but I think that the final outcome here is not so much on me, it's on you. And that means that we are making every opportunity we can to hear your voice, but you have to talk to us. So in many situations, we say, see something, say something. That's good for our safety. It's also good for, just making sure that we're doing a good job for, having the schools be equitable and safe places that you want to be and learn and feel respected. And if they're not, then please let me know, let your administrators know. And if they're not being addressed, we have a hierarchy that goes forever. And there's tons of people to talk to and you will get your issues heard. I don't hope it has to go that far. I hope that we have, resolution within the school, but if it's not working and that you're not being heard there, we can make sure you do get heard. And so tell us when there's an issue, but in the meantime, I'll just make sure to let them know, how the discussion went and what you guys were concerned about.
I think I would just echo what Ms. Whitfield said, that I think, and not necessarily what I do in my work, but what I want to impress upon you ladies as high school students is to recognize that you have very strong voices and that you are your best advocates most of the time. So to the extent that you can take the tools that you've learned today, and I think the most important thing would be to, one, know the policies, know the consequences of the policies, and then document what you see when you see that there are discrepancies or disparities between how the policies and the consequences are being handed out amongst your peers, and then go up the chain of people that are in charge of enforcing the rules to see how you can effectuate change. And when you reach a hurdle, when you reach a roadblock, and you need somebody to advocate just a little bit more assertively for you, I'll put my information in the chat and feel free to email me so I can help best you determine how to advocate for yourselves.
And I would just reiterate everything the ladies just said. It's really in terms of being your voice. Please keep voicing all of your concerns on behalf of your friends. I'm sorry for the story, Defani, that you shared, and Sammy's story too. We had two accounts right here. And so with that, I will continue to keep your stories and voice them when I can in the areas that can affect change as well. So really, thank you so much for this opportunity and keep at it.
We are going to let our moderators speak about the organizations that they are representing. I want to make one thing clear though. Today is Denim Day, which is a worldwide day that marks that no matter what you're wearing, no one has the right to take advantage of you. And it's just a reminder that as females, we are not responsible for the distraction or disturbance of males. And I think that kind of goes to that sexualization question that we talked about a little bit earlier. So if you don't know what Denim Day is, please Google it. It started in Italy. So if you Google like Denim Day in Italy, you'll hear the story of how Denim Day got started. So I'm going to hand it over to our amazing moderators that represent two phenomenal girl voice led organizations. So I'm going to first hand it over to Sammy and Daphne to talk about Girls Voice Task Force.
Do you want to go first, Sammy, or should I go?
I'll go first. Okay. So the Girls Voice Task Force is a safe space for girls to lead, learn, and grow and be connected with other people that share similar experiences, and also lead presentations and sit and listen to have conversations with other girls.
I would just love to say that the Girls Voice Task Force also provides multiple opportunities and networking opportunities that helps us beat people like you, Miss Richardson, school board member Whitfield. It's just amazing how the Girls Voice Task Force was able to bring all of us together to talk about such an important issue. And we've talked about other important issues before in our previous sessions. And that's why I would just love to see more girls and gender nonconforming people join the Girls Voice Task Force as well. So I think Holly will put a link in chat or a scan code feature to scan the QR code to just empower women and just to allow us to have an even better opportunity for our future.
I'd love to introduce Sophia and I as part of the Coalition Against Period Poverty, also known as CAP. We're a statewide organization that's completely youth-led. We work with other organizations in different counties and cities to fight against period poverty, which is the lack of access to period products because they're so expensive, as many of us may know. And we're working to also end the stigma around periods in general, because a lot of people are embarrassed or ashamed to talk about periods. And if we're afraid to talk about them, then we won't get any work done in eliminating period poverty. And I'll pass it over to Sophia so she can explain the Learning with Dignity bill that we've been working on.
Yes, so we are also trying to get the Learning with Dignity bill passed. It has been passed in the Florida House. The bill allows for school districts to get period products in all schools across the state of Florida, provided in the bathrooms of all our menstruators. So yeah, it's very exciting news. We went up to Tallahassee to lobby for our bill. We spoke to different politicians. We did a little press conference. We were up there doing period packing parties with our politicians, and it was just a great way to advocate for our cause, and very proud of all the hard work that we've been putting into this and seeing the outcome as it has been passed in the House. It was like passed like 2 weeks ago, very exciting. But yeah, 1 week ago, there you go. And it was passed unanimously, so it was amazing. But yeah.
That is so amazing. Want to just thank everyone for being here. And I want to empower you girls to know that your voice is your power, not only for yourselves, but for other girls who are watching, who might not be as outspoken as you. When you take that first step to show up and use your voice, it empowers another girl to show up and do the same thing. So thank you so much. If you are watching this live stream, please join our virtual space meeting happening on May 11th. That's actually going to be hosted by the Coalition Against Period Poverty. And this is a girl-led space. We always like to give them the platform and opportunity to use their voice and speak about issues of concern to them. So thank you again so much for being here. And we look forward to having our girls participate in more events like this and lead more spaces like this. Holly?
I'd just like to say we have another event coming up on May 23rd. That's going to be a similar to this panel on live on WebEx and on Facebook. And it's around, you might have heard that girls' mental health numbers are pretty severe compared to boys. They have significant levels of hopelessness, depression, loneliness. So we're going to do a panel for parents to get resources, free resources in Palm Beach County for counseling services, groups, and we'll actually have people from the Hanley Foundation talking about how you can talk with the girls in your life about mental health and how they can increase their communication and feel supported. So please join us on May 23rd. Takita, wrap us up.
Yes. So we are actually co-hosting with Horizon a legislative panel coming up on May 9th. This is going to be a great conversation about what happened in our Florida legislature with 4 of our state legislative members. This is a great opportunity for young people and adults to get involved and have their voices heard. We will be taking questions from the audience, so you will have an opportunity to ask the legislators directly about issues that matter to you. And Holly, if you could share the link in the chat, that would be wonderful. I hope to see you there.
Great. Thank you all so much for spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great evening, and, reach out to us with any questions, or if you would like to see more of these types of events, we are happy to host them. So please let us know.
Bye. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thank you.